Hi, it's the 11th of October and we had our first frost last night. It wasn't too severe, it's only about 11 o'clock now and it's all cleared up. However, the dahlias have been blackened, so I think that's a sign that the growing season has stopped and I need to salvage what I can so that we can make way for winter. So in this video, I thought I would do a review of the dahlia flowers that we've had this year, see what colours worked and what didn't, whether the flowers worked, and how well they dried. Hi, I'm Nicola from Shropshire in the UK. I grow my flowers here in a Zone 8 garden, and if we haven't met before, welcome. I predominantly garden for dry flowers, but that means they're the same flowers for cut flowers. I'm just picking specific ones that dry well, or at least trying. So this year has been my experimental year, and I'm just trying to see what works and what doesn't. And in that respect, dahlias do dry, but some are better than others. So in this video, I'm going to review the dahlias, even though they're not in their best condition after a frost. They're looking slightly bedraggled. I don't think there's going to be any that are truly salvageable, but we shall see. When I set out growing this season, or when I set out buying the dahlias for this season, I had the intention of trying to create a more cohesive colour palette, looking at a colour scheme of what I termed blush and berries, so pale pinks and burgundies, and then peach melba, so the oranges, orange, yellows, pinks, sort of things, sunset colours, so that, and hopefully everything that was planted would fall into one of those two categories and would go together when they were picked. Some of those worked and some of them were just crazy purchases from me and I've no idea why. Anyway, so I'll go through what we've got and show you where we are. So let's start with the review of the growing season. It's been a bit of a funny old year. Everything started late. It was a long, wet winter, not particularly cold, but wet. The dahlias got put out at the usual sort of time, but they didn't flower till later. And that was because we had a deluge of slugs and they had a blast. And there was a lot of dahlias that I thought wouldn't make it. I dug them up and put them in pots and tried to protect them from the slugs, and actually they have come back. The night silence is one of those plants, actually. It did look as if there was nothing left that could revive it. The leaves and the stems were just a skeleton. But it has come back and flowered. Now, it's only flowered in the last couple of weeks, so it has been very slow. The same is true for the Holly Hill Dark Beauty. It flowered for the first time yesterday. That's a little gutting. In fact, I left the flowers, I didn't cut them yesterday, when I normally would have on a Thursday, and I left them because I thought some of them needed to open out a bit more. Everything's slowed down now, and that one had just really started to open, so I wanted to make sure it got the most. Unfortunately, it got blasted with frost this morning, and so it is fairly obvious that that flower is not at its best. So the season has been slow. I still have some plants that have not yet flowered, and in all honesty, I'm not sure what they are. So until I dig them up, I'm hoping the labels are still somewhere nearby and readable, so I can work out what I still have. But I think there is about possibly 3, maybe 4 dahlias that have yet to flower. The Cafe au lait, they have only flowered again in the last month. Would you believe it? This last week they've really got going. So from not having many flowers, well, no flowers at all until probably September, then only 1 or 2. Now I've got loads and they've all gone and damaged with the frost. Labrinth is also similar. These were Cafe au lait and Labrinth are normally reliable. They are normally my go-to, and I can create any number of tubers for them. I always have excess. But this year, I don't know. And they weren't that damaged by slugs, interestingly. Cafe au lait definitely was not that damaged. Labrinth possibly was damaged quite a lot. The Labrinth two-tone, which is just the purpley looking one, that has been prolific. So I don't know what's been wrong with those tubers, but I'll have a look when I dig them up, see if there is anything obvious going on. So the old tubers that I've had prior to this year was the Cafe au lait and the Labrinth. I had a Bonesta left. Nothing came of that, slugs got it. I had quite a few Penhill Dark Monarchs. They've all been eaten by slugs. But a lot of the first year tubers that I have here have actually survived. So take of that what you will, I don't know. The ones that haven't flowered, they have still got leaf. So they will still be putting energy into the tuber. So they should still be okay and will flower again next year. So I'm still going to dig them up and treat them the same as the ones that have flowered. Hopefully next year will be better for them. So that's it for the flowers that have grown. On the whole, there has been a few missing. On the whole, considering this start that we had, and I thought I was going to lose everything, it has been successful. Now let's compare the colours and see how we can blend everything in together. So not much of a crop, and most of them look dreadful. I wouldn't normally have picked them, but I just want to have them there so I can show you a comparison between the dried and the fresh, even though they're in a dreadful state. So the flowers are picked, and I have their corresponding dry flowers here. And so let's just get in and review. Please bear in mind, a lot of these flowers are not at their best, which is really disappointing. The frost damage was worse than I thought it was going to be. A lot of them are looking very shabby. It's not looking great, but hopefully there's enough colour on the flower to just sort of bring out colour palettes to see what's missing in my view in the collection. Cafe au lait, a classic Dahlia favourite. As the season progresses on, it seems this particular one has lost its colour. So it's got the creamy colour, but it seems to have lost the pink. But as you can tell from the dried version, there was definitely pink in there. And I think for the size of the flower head, this dried version has come out lovely. The problem with the Cafe au lait is that it has such a big flower head, it's quite tricky to dry. So it's the centre part here that becomes the problem. If it doesn't dry quick enough, then the stem and the head falls off, which is the example we've got here. So whilst it's tricky to dry, it's well worth doing. Sweet Natalie, again, it's the end of the season, so it's lost a bit of its pink colour, but you can see from the dried version that there's definitely pink in there. Wonderful as a fresh flower, long sturdy stems, and actually wonderful as a dried flower. Good size head, no breakage of stems. I've got lots of these dried. They've all come out really well. So I would say that's good in all cases. This is a Lady Kate dried flower. I don't have Lady Kate as a fresh flower. In the fresh form, Lady Kate and Sweet Natalie are pretty similar. Similar colouring, similar size head. Lady Kate might be marginally smaller. Stems on the Lady Kate is definitely shorter and weaker from what I've seen. And dried, the petals are thinner and, I'm not going to say longer, but thinner. More of them maybe. Definitely thinner compared to the Sweet Natalie. Both of them will work well in wreath arrangements and in bouquets, actually, little posies, dried flower posies. So they're good sizes for both of them. So they will work across the board for what I'm going to make over the winter months. So really pleased with those. Peaches. The flower now, later in the season, is marginally better than it was earlier. And I'm not keen on this orange. It's a bit too bright and I don't think it goes well with the colours than it was. Now I thought this was more white earlier in the season, but it's becoming more pink as the season has gone on. I actually really like the flower unopened. That colour there is lovely, lovely soft peach. I really like that, but once it opens up, not so much. The dried flower has dried strangely quite beige. This dried variety is an example where there was some colour in it. Most of the examples that I had were fairly beige. So this is one of the ones with colour, which is quite nice with the colour. But as I say, most of them didn't have much colour, strangely, and were quite small. Could be when I picked them, could be maybe smaller pom-pom heads, and this one was more open as it is here. I don't know. So it's a bit hit and miss on the drying front. Not keen on the colour in the fresh version, so I might donate it to a friend going forward. In my opinion, peaches is not really working for me. This is Caitlyn's Joy, another pom-pom. This is not a good version of it. This is about a week into the drying process. I didn't have a fresh version, funnily enough, when I was doing the final pick. So it's not the best version, but fresh. It is a lovely peachy pink. It seems to have lost the peachiness to it whilst it's drying, but it is lovely. So, I'm going to keep it no matter what. Dried, it seems to have taken on a more lilac colour to it, which is unusual. It's a good size head. It's dried well. I'm liking it. So that all in all has been a successful try this year. Labrinth, my favourite. This is not very big compared to what it usually is. It's normally quite a bit bigger than that. I love the colours. I love the pinks and the peaches. They work well together. Where the peaches, on the peaches Dahlia, I thought didn't work well together. Labrinth is another completely different story. This does work well together. It blends well. I love Labrinth. It's a good size flower head. Normally quite productive. Not so much this year. I don't think I could be without Labrinth. Dried wise, again, it doesn't lose much colour in the drying process. You can still tell the pinks and the peaches. The head is quite large, similar size dried to the Cafe au Lait, but a much sturdier join to the stem. So Labrinth is definitely a good all-rounder, I think. American Dawn, this has been ever so productive for me, although I did have 2 plants of it on the go, so difficult to say how much one was better than the other. It has a bluey colour to it that doesn't really blend well with a lot of my other varieties, so that's the only drawback. The flower head size is good, the stem strength is good, it dries well. If you can see here, we've got a bit of a varying degrees of drying. This is fresh. This is a week or so into the drying process. So you can see it's getting a bit raggedy. Then this is it dried. I mean, that's quite a good dried flower. Look good in a wreath, that. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. So even though the fresh isn't a team player on my team Dahlia, the dried is absolutely fine. And the harshness of that bluey pink has dissipated and it works well with other things going forward. So that is good for me. This is Molly Raven. This is a frost damaged Molly Raven, so it looks grim underneath there, but hopefully you can tell the colours. This is a week old dried version, so I just wanted to see. Normally it's not quite as pale as that, it's more of a deeper colour, so I don't know whether that's part of the frost, part of end of season, I'm not sure. Dried, I believe it goes like that, so it dries quite dark. I like it, it's a keeper, it's a good size head, lovely fresh. What's not to like, really? Now then, this is what I'm terming night silence. I don't know whether it is, but that's what I think it is. It is lovely. It's only just started flowering, so I haven't got many examples of it. Bit of frost damage here. But it is very similar, colour-wise, to the Molly Raven, which we've just had. Let me bring that one back in. So colour-wise, it is very similar. Let's hide the frost. So it's very similar colour-wise. This, I believe, this is a little bit more pink than the Molly Raven, whereas Molly Raven was more of a yellow tinge. So it will go better with the blushes and the pinks that I'm going to try and get in for next year. This is it drying for a week. And interestingly, the centre started to come out with the pollen. I'm sure there's a technical word for it. But I don't know what it is. The centre of them, fresh, seem to always stay like that. It's drying, we've got more yellow coming out into it. So that'll be interesting. I don't know how that's going to dry. I haven't got a fully dried version of it. So I don't know. But as a fresh flower, it is most definitely a keeper. It's beautiful. Good size head, good size stem, seems to be strong. Again, what's not to like in that? This one is an interesting one. It is Urchin. I discarded it last year from the cutting patch because its stems are just too weak. The flower heads flop about all over the place. They are no good in a flower arrangement. However, they dry brilliantly. They are unusual, should we say. They are unusual. So I kept it for that. It's in a pot in my garden and it seems to be doing okay there. As I say, the flower head, it can't support its own flower heads. So they tend to droop down and you don't actually see them, which is why I find it disappointing. I would say it's even not that great in the garden. But it's a good colour. It's a good shape. I like it dried, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It's all I can say. Finally, the Rogue in my collection. I don't know what made me buy it. It doesn't go with anything. It's got a purpley tone to it. This is really awful. Somebody in a comment on a previous video called it's a bit granny knickers. And actually now it's frost damage. It looks like granny knickers that have been around for about 3 decades. It's horrible. But I was just trying to show what colour it was before. And that's probably quite a good example of the colour. The inside was more white and quite a cold white, so again didn't really blend with anything. However, dried, it does look quite wonderful. It is taken on the Labrinth shape. It's got the bigger head. It dries like a Labrinth, so it dries pretty well. I can imagine that quite nice in a wreath arrangement, maybe even in a bouquet. Problem is I don't have many purpley things. So dried it looks okay, fresh I'm not so keen, and I'm probably not so keen on bringing in any other flowers that are complementary to that. So it will stay being a Rogue, and I'll keep it as long as it wants to live here. It's nicer as a dried flower than fresh, in my opinion. So from a fresh perspective, I need to expand my softer pinks so that it blends in better with the deeper burgundies, which I was trying to increase my collection of, which I think I have. So as long as they survive the winter, then I think we're okay with that. But I need something that is darker than the Sweet Natalie and Lady Kate. Darker as in more pink, actually. But I'm looking for more that size heads, maybe a cactus, pom-poms, maybe, but more pink. I think I'm going to try Linda's Baby and Preference. I'm going to try those. I've had them before. They didn't survive into a plant, actually. The tubers weren't great. So that's what I think I'm going to take on next year. In the peach side, last year I had lots of peaches. So I think I had Milena Fleur, which worked well. I really liked Milena Fleur last year, so I might look at it again. I have a pom-pom, peachy pink pom-pom in the form of the Caitlyn Joy. So I'm looking again for more decorative shaped in the peachy side. So let the hunt begin, really. So there we have it. That's my view of the dahlias this season. I think I've had some hits, but I still have some gaps that I'd like to fill next year. So if it's been useful, I'm really glad. Hopefully I've encouraged you to dry some so that you get longer life out of your dahlias. And if this video has been of any value to you, then please hit the like button, subscribe, and keep watching my other videos. Until next time, happy gardening.